There's a lot of plumbing inside of DotNetNuke, lots of services that are there. You want to reuse those services without recreating them. Okay, that's kind of the whole idea. When you're building a module, you have total access to everything inside of DotNetNuke. Make use of it rather than building it from scratch. So I really look at DNN as an application development platform. And a lot of companies use it that way. You know, they'll use it in intranets, or they'll use it actually to build products around. They'll actually build full-blown applications in a .NET portal. And it may not resemble a .NET portal, but .NET is behind there. So that's kind of the reasoning around doing this. All right. So what I want to do now is hop onto my regular machine, do a DNN 5 installation, and then actually install a custom module so you see what installing a custom module looks like. Okay. So this part, if I do it all right, it goes pretty quickly. But things happen. So let's go take a look at what we're going to do. So there's really five things that are necessary to build a .NETNuke, or to get .NETNuke installed. All right, number one is you need directory permissions. Number two is you need a virtual directory or a website on the machine. Number three is you need an empty SQL database. And number four is you need to make a couple of system configuration, like setting your connection strings and stuff. Now, it used to be that you had to edit the web config file manually, but nowadays you can just do it through the wizard during the install. So I'll show you that process. So what I've done is, on my machine, because I tend to do a lot of DNN install, is I create a directory called DNN. And I set permissions on that directory, and then any subdirectory I create underneath it inherits the permissions from its parent, so you don't have to worry about setting permissions in every single folder. So if we take a look at my DNN folder, and I'm running, by the way, on Vista 64 here, and I'll be using SQL Server 2005. So this, if you're not used to Vista, it's kind of an interesting divergence from using XP. So we'll see that the network service account, which is the account that Vista uses, Vista or Server 2003 doesn't use network service. And if you're using XP, it's the ASP.NET account. All right, you want to generally put full control on that directory, because the web application needs to be able to create directories and put files in there. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is create a directory, and we'll just call this together, not surprisingly. And what I want to do then, I haven't, actually, yes, I have, now that I think about it. Right, so, go to my download distributions, version 5. All right, so here's my install kit. Here is version 5 install. All right, doesn't say beta or RC after it. So 5.0 install. All right, and I'm just going to I use 7-zip instead of 1-zip, and I'm just going to extract the files and point it at that ODUG directory. All right, so what it's done then is it's put all the files that are needed for the .NET website out into that directory. You can see there's a bunch of folders and a few files, not terribly many there. All right, so that's the first two things. That's the permissions on the directories and the, well, actually, I didn't mention that you actually have to put the distribution files out there, but that's one of the things good. All right, so next I'm going to go to the IIS manager. This is IIS 7 on it, and IIS 7 is sort of perplexing. First started dealing with it, they took that nice IIS interface where everything was neatly packaged in a property dialog, and they put a hand grenade in it and blew it to smithereens, and I can't ever find anything in there. So what I'm going to do here, for purposes of for being expeditious, is create a virtual directory and not a website, because I have to change the host file to create a website. And that's kind of a pain. So I'm gonna add actually an application, not a virtual directory in this case. And we're gonna call it ODUG. And I'll just let it use the default app tool in this case. And path is ODUG. All right, so that's all I have to do in IIS. Next, I'll go over to the SQL 2005 Management Studio. And what you're doing here is just creating an empty database.
Here's a question that some people might be afraid to ask or not knowing to ask. Can we do this in SQL 2008 too?
In SQL 2008?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's just for the sake of.
Yes, you can. I happen to have 2005 on this machine. All right. So we're going to call the database. And since it's my dev machine, I try to be very consistent with the things that I do. And I actually have an account on the machine called DNN that I use as the owner of my database, so that I don't have to screw around with creating accounts every time I do this. And then one option that I'll set on it is just to set the recovery model to simple. And that way, it's a little easier to manage the database itself. So then I'll say OK to create it. Okay. So now we have everything we need to run the DNN site, except the thing running. So what we'll do is open up a browser and just visit that that application directory that we created. And if the demo guys are with me, we'll see that it won't do a whole lot of work at this point, but it will come up to the install wizard. So kind of digging all those details out, there's a bunch of tutorials out there, and everyone's a little bit different, and it's always kind of fun trying to figure out how to do this from scratch all by yourself. But it's possible to do. I mean, I went that route at one time too. But it's really not too bad. You see the steps that I just went through. It's pretty straightforward stuff that you're going to do. All right. And it seems like by now we've had a wizard. A nice, fast dual processor machine is sitting here. So the wizard then will walk us through a series of steps that seem to take forever when you're walking through them. Man. Seems like it really should be on that. Okay, here we go. Good. That's good news. All right. So what I'm going to do then is use the typical install. I could use custom, but I'm just, for purposes of getting through this, I'm going to use typical, which will install the minimal stuff. It won't ask me quite as many questions. So you can go through and use custom and look at all the choices that it comes up with for you on your own. Now this is where I said that each page in the wizard seems to take forever to come up. All right, so the first thing you've got to do is test your permissions. And green is good, red is bad, and the status messages that come up. So that just says that it was able to probably write a file out to a directory. I'm not sure exactly how they do the permissions, but the permissions check. But that gives you a quick way of checking to see whether or not. Actually, here's the things that you can do: is create a folder, a file, and delete stuff. So now I'm using SQL 2005, so I'm going to choose that option. You can use SQL Express if you want. There's an app data directory underneath .NETNuke that has an SDF file for SQL Express. So you can use SQL Express if you want. And it works fine on a development machine. Don't try to run a production website off of it, though. Or you're going to want to use SQL Server for sure.
Is there anything special? SQL Server 2008.
Can you give me some name?
Not particularly. I haven't gone through all the details of doing that yet. That's one of the next things on my list to walk through. I don't have it on this machine, so I haven't done it yet. I have gone through it once, but I didn't write all this stuff down. ODUG, and I'm not using integrated security.